I was standing in my kitchen in Newton, Massachusetts, arranging white roses in a crystal vase when my husband Richard's phone lit up on the granite counter. He'd left it there when he went upstairs to change for his weekly golf game. We'd been married for 32 years. I wasn't the type to check his phone, but the message preview was right there, impossible to miss. Last night was everything. Can't stop thinking about you. The sender was saved as V. Patterson, office. My hand didn't shake. That's what surprised me most. I picked up his phone, used his birthday to unlock it. He'd never changed the passcode, and I read everything. 2 years. The affair had been going on for 2 years. Vanessa Patterson, 29 years old, worked in his real estate development firm as a junior architect. The messages were detailed, explicit. They talked about hotels I recognized, restaurants where we'd celebrated our own anniversaries, even our vacation home in the Berkshires that Richard claimed he'd been using for solo retreats to clear his head. I set the phone back exactly where it had been. I finished arranging the roses. When Richard came downstairs in his golf clothes, I smiled at him the same way I had every Saturday morning for 3 decades. Have a good game, honey. Don't forget we have dinner with the Hendersons tonight. He kissed my cheek. Wouldn't miss it. Love you. I watched him drive away in his Mercedes. Then I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. I didn't cry. I didn't call my sister or my best friend Martha. I did something I'd learned from running the Newton Women's Shelter Foundation for 15 years. I built a case. First, I went through Richard's computer. He'd been careless, probably because he thought I was technologically helpless. I found hotel receipts charged to our joint credit card, the one I rarely checked because Richard handled most of our finances. I found emails going back 26 months. I created a hidden folder and took screenshots of everything. Every message, every photo, every receipt. Then I called Daniel Morrison, the attorney who'd helped me establish the foundation's legal structure. Daniel was discreet, experienced, and most importantly, he'd handled his own divorce 5 years ago. I need to see you Monday morning, I told him. It's personal. I spent the weekend being the perfect wife. I smiled through dinner with the Hendersons. I held Richard's hand during the movie we watched Sunday night. And every time he touched me, I thought about Vanessa Patterson and her messages about how Richard made her feel alive and desired in ways she'd never experienced. Monday morning, I met with Daniel. I showed him everything. This is textbook infidelity, he said, scrolling through the screenshots on my iPad. Massachusetts is a no-fault state, but adultery still matters in asset division, especially given the length of your marriage and your contributions. You worked while he built his business, correct? I taught high school English for 18 years while he started the development company. I used my teacher's salary to help with the initial investments. Then I left teaching to run the foundation full-time. Good. And the house? Both our names, but I inherited money from my father that we used for the down payment. I have the documentation. Daniel leaned back in his leather chair. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to protect every asset you're entitled to before we file anything. How much does Richard know about your separate accounts? I have a personal account from the foundation work. He's never asked about it. Start moving money there. Nothing suspicious, just your usual foundation salary and any gifts or inheritance that were specifically yours. Document everything. I also want you to get a full accounting of his business, property deeds, partnership agreements, investment accounts. Can you access those? He keeps everything in his study. He's very organized. Perfect. Don't confront him yet. Don't let him know you know. We need time to build this properly. I spent the next 3 weeks being a ghost in my own life. I copied every document in Richard's study. I tracked his schedule. I noted every evening he said he was working late or meeting clients. I called our accountant, who'd done our taxes for 20 years, and requested copies of our last 5 years of returns, saying I needed them for foundation grant applications. And then I did something that surprised even me. I texted Richard from my phone. Don't forget, I'm flying to Portland Thursday morning for the foundation conference, back Sunday evening. His response came quickly. Safe travels. I'll miss you. What he didn't know was that there was no conference. I'd invented it, and I wasn't going anywhere. Instead, I checked into the Marriott in downtown Boston under my maiden name, Catherine Brennan. I hired a private investigator named Linda Chen, a former Boston PD detective who specialized in matrimonial cases. I gave her Richard's schedule and Vanessa Patterson's address. I need photographs, I told her. Clear, undeniable photographs. And I need to know everywhere they go. Thursday evening, Linda called me. They're at their apartment right now. Beacon Hill, 3rd floor walk-up. Their apartment? He's been renting it for 18 months. Lease is in his name. 1 bedroom, very nice building. Doorman confirmed he's a regular, usually comes Wednesday and Thursday evenings. I sat on the hotel bed, staring at the photograph Linda had just emailed me. Richard and Vanessa, walking into the building together, his hand on the small of her back the same way he used to touch me. Friday morning, I made a decision. I texted Richard. Conference ended early, some sessions canceled, catching the 2 p.m. flight home instead. See you for dinner? His response took 7 minutes. Oh, great. Actually, I forgot I have a client dinner tonight. Important deal. Probably won't be home until late. Tomorrow? I smiled. Of course. Important deal. Don't work too hard. Then I texted Linda. I need you to follow them tonight. I want to know where they go. I drove home from Boston. I walked through my house, our house, seeing it differently now. The renovations we'd done 5 years ago. The kitchen, Richard said, was too expensive, but eventually agreed to. The master bathroom where I'd cried through my hysterectomy because he'd been too busy with a project to come to the hospital. I sat in his study and I opened his laptop again. I found the lease for the Beacon Hill apartment. $3,200 a month. I found credit card statements for a card I'd never seen. Jewelry purchases, lingerie, flowers, wine. $23,000 in the past year alone. Linda called at 8:30. They're at Menton. Very nice restaurant. He ordered champagne. I knew Menton. Richard had taken me there for our 30th anniversary. He told me it was overpriced and we shouldn't make a habit of places like that. I thanked Linda and hung up. Then I called Daniel. I want to file Monday morning, I told him. I have everything we need. Catherine, are you sure? Once we file, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything. That weekend, Richard came home Saturday afternoon with flowers. Grocery store flowers, not the roses from the florist he used to buy me. He kissed my forehead and told me he'd missed me. We had dinner. We watched television. And when he reached for me in bed that night, I let him hold me while I stared at the ceiling and planned his Monday. Sunday evening, I told him I had an early meeting at the foundation. I might not be here when you wake up. Important donor breakfast. He barely looked up from his phone. No problem. Have a good meeting. Monday morning at 9 o'clock, I walked into his office building. Richard's secretary, Patricia, had known me for 15 years. She smiled when she saw me. Mrs. Coleman! What a nice surprise. Richard didn't mention you were coming by. It's a surprise. Is he in? He's on a call, but I'll let him know you're here. I walked past her desk and opened his office door. Richard was on the phone, leaning back in his chair, looking out the window at the Boston skyline. He startled when he saw me. I'll call you back, he said into the phone, hanging up quickly. Catherine, what are you doing here? I closed the door behind me and set my purse on his desk. We need to talk. His face went pale. In that moment, he knew. I've known about Vanessa for a month, I said calmly. I've read every message. I've seen the photographs. I've found the apartment lease. I've documented every dollar you've spent on her. I've copied every file on your computer and in your study. He stood up, holding out his hands. Catherine, please, let me explain. I don't want your explanation. I want you to know that at 10 o'clock this morning in exactly 37 minutes, my attorney is filing for divorce. Adultery. I have 2 years of evidence. The judge will see everything. You can't do this. The business that I helped you build, the one I supported for 18 years on a teacher's salary while you got established, that business? I opened my purse and pulled out a folder. These are copies. The originals are with my attorney. But I thought you should see what a judge will see. The apartment, the credit cards, the hotels, some of them on nights you told me you were at business dinners. I placed the folder on his desk and turned to leave. Catherine, wait, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. I'll end it. I promise. It didn't mean anything. I stopped at the door. It meant 2 years of my life I spent believing I was in a real marriage. It meant $23,000 you spent on another woman while telling me we needed to watch our spending. It meant our 30th anniversary dinner at Menton was apparently training for taking her to the Fawn. Same restaurant. It meant everything, Richard, just not to you. I walked out of his office, past Patricia's shocked face, into the elevator. My hands were shaking now, but I'd done it. I'd looked him in the eye and I'd told him I knew. I'd taken back my power. The divorce took 8 months. Richard fought it initially, tried to claim the evidence was obtained illegally, tried to argue for a more equal split of assets. But Massachusetts law was clear, and Daniel was thorough. Richard had used marital funds for his affair. He'd lied repeatedly, and the business, the one I'd helped him build, had increased in value significantly during our marriage, which meant I was entitled to my share. In the end, I got the Newton house. I got half the value of his business, paid out over 5 years. I got half of his pension and retirement accounts. I got alimony for 10 years, or until I remarried, whichever came first. And I got peace. Richard married Vanessa 6 months after our divorce was finalized. I heard through mutual friends that the wedding was small, rushed. I also heard that his business partners were unhappy about the divorce settlement, about the instability he'd brought to the company. One of them bought him out entirely a year later. As for me, I sold the Newton house. Too many memories, too many rooms that echoed with a life that had been half fiction. I bought a smaller colonial in Lexington, closer to the foundation office, with a garden I could actually manage myself. I traveled first to Ireland, where my grandmother was born, then to Italy, then to Greece. Places Richard had always said were too expensive or not his style. I learned to live alone. Not lonely, but alone. There's a difference. I had coffee with Martha every Tuesday. I had dinner with my sister's family every Sunday. I threw myself into the foundation work, and we expanded to serve 3 times as many families. 2 years after the divorce, I was at a foundation fundraiser when a man approached me at the hors d'oeuvres table. "You run this organization?" I turned. He was tall, silver-haired, wearing a well-cut suit but with kind eyes. "I do. Catherine Brennan." "James Fletcher." "I'm new to Newton, and my daughter suggested I get involved with local causes. She thought this one would suit me." He smiled. "I'm a retired attorney, divorced 8 years ago, 2 grown children. And I'm told I make decent conversation at boring fundraisers." I laughed. "Well, I can't promise this fundraiser won't be boring, but the cause is good. That's all that matters." We talked for an hour. He asked thoughtful questions about the foundation's work. He told me about his grandchildren, about his love of hiking, about downsizing from a large house to a condo because he'd discovered he didn't need all that space. When the evening ended, he asked if he could take me to dinner sometime. "Just dinner," he said. "Between 2 people who've lived enough life to know what matters." I said yes. I don't know if James and I will be anything more than friends. I'm not sure I need anything more. But what I learned from Richard, from the divorce, from building my life again at 62 years old, is this: I am enough on my own. I don't need someone to complete me, or validate me, or make me feel alive. Richard called me once, about a year after he married Vanessa. He asked if we could talk, said he'd made mistakes, said he understood now what he'd lost. I listened politely and told him I hoped he was happy, and then I hung up. I heard later that he and Vanessa separated. Something about trust issues, about her finding messages on his phone from someone new. I wasn't surprised. Men who cheat once usually cheat again. They think they're looking for something missing in their marriage, but what they're really looking for is something missing in themselves, and that's not something another person can fix. I learned that I am stronger than I ever knew. I learned that 62 is not too old to start over. I learned that the life I thought I wanted, the big house, the long marriage, the comfortable routine wasn't worth staying in if it was built on lies. Some mornings, I wake up in my Lexington house and I make coffee just for myself, and I sit in my small garden, and I feel more at peace than I did in 32 years of marriage. That's not sad. That's not lonely. That's freedom. The devoted wife, the exciting mistress, the perfect life, they're all roles we play. But eventually, if the foundation is rotten, everything crumbles. The only question is whether you crumble with it or whether you walk away and build something new. I chose to build something new. And it turns out, at 62, with no one to please but myself, I'm building the best life I've ever had.